And good morning. I'm delighted to have with me today the ambassador of France to Indonesia and Timor Leste, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you're right.
And this is not your first time in Indonesia, but welcome back to Indonesia, if I may say, Monsieur Ambassador. Please tell us a bit about your past career and how you've ended up in Indonesia. Where have you been around the world, and what happened when you were in Indonesia before?
Well, first, let me thank you for inviting me for this interview. It's an excellent opportunity, and I thank you for that. Well, I'm a diplomat. I joined the ministry in 1989 after studying history, international relations, and Oriental languages. And so I've been many places. I've been several times in London because my wife is a banker. It was convenient for both of us. I'm supposed to be a specialist of Asia, so I've worked a lot in Paris, notably on Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia. And I was posted in 1997, to Jakarta for 3 years in the times of Chris Mon and Reformasi. So it was very, very interesting, difficult, but challenging times. And coming back 20 years after, I am impressed by the progress made by this country, economically, of course, the strength of the civil society, and the democracy, which is strong in Indonesia. And so it's really a joy for me, of course, being once again among Indonesian people, which I love, a beautiful country, but also a country very active and very important, not only in the region, but in the world.
You were here at a very difficult time in Indonesia's history. How did you manage to come back at the next difficult time? I mean, what an amazing cycle. Do you see any similarities between the challenges that are faced now? Because there's now the COVID is turning into an economic challenge as well. Are there lessons you learned?
The big difference is that in '98, the crisis in Indonesia was only in Indonesia. Now it's the whole world which is affected. So it's quite a different thing. But you're right, in a sense that this crisis is affecting deeply the economy of the country, and creating unemployment and putting people who are already in tough situations even more at risk. So it's very difficult. Well, it's the second time I'm living a crisis in Indonesia. I hope I'm not the bearer of bad luck, but well, if I come a third time and there's again a problem, we might think that. But no, but it's always in difficult times that you tend to know the people better, the country, how it reacts, and it's very interesting. One of the things which is quite interesting is that although the crisis is severe in Indonesia, financially the rupiah is still resisting quite well, which was not the case in '98. And so that's something which is encouraging. Of course, there are many problems and it will last quite a long time, but I'm very confident that Indonesia will bounce back. The capacity of resilience of Indonesian people and of the country are great, and so we have no worries for the long term. Of course, for the short term, it's going to be difficult, but it's going to be difficult everywhere in the world.
I did ask you if the embassy has coped well with the challenges. I'm sure it did. That's all over now. The French citizens getting back to France, the embassy changing its ways of doing things. That's really quite par for the course now. That's all done, I presume.
Well, Indonesia is a country which attracts a lot of tourists, and a lot of French tourists. We have around 300,000 French tourists a year. Of course, many of them were stuck in Indonesia, a large part in Bali. So for the first months and a half of the crisis, we had to help them coming back to France, because the airlines stopped, or many of them stopped. So it was quite difficult for French people. The French government chartered 4 flights from Qatar Airways to bring French back to France, 1 from Jakarta and 3 from Bali. So it was quite helpful. We still have a few of French people who are stuck in the country, but very few of them, and none is in a difficult situation. And now the companies are reopening, the airlines are reopening, it's going to be solved easily. You mentioned the embassy. Well, of course, we monitored the situation quite closely. We took the protective measures for the organization and protection of our own agents and of the people who are coming to the embassy, with masks, hydroalcoholic gel, and body temperature measurement. We had to cancel events. There was the week of the Francophonia, which had to be cancelled, which was a pity, because concerts and conferences planned with the cooperation of the other Francophone embassies in Jakarta. We are, for many of us, working at home, but we are still providing the basic consular services for the French community.
The next question is about the assistance. I mean, France has ongoing assistance programs in new ways nowadays, looking at the way in which the countries help each other. During this crisis, has France been proactive or actively assisting the process of getting COVID under treatment here in Indonesia? What has it been happening on a G2G basis?
Yes, well, France is mobilized to provide funds to support the endeavor of the Indonesian government. AFD, the French Development Agency, is mobilizing a total of 245 million euros in Indonesia to face the sanitary crisis, but also to mitigate the social and economic crisis. The French Development Agency has signed a $150 million credit facility with PTSMI, the Indonesian financial institution for infrastructure, for which $45 million will be dedicated to reinforcing municipal health infrastructure. And the French agency is also preparing, with the French Minister of Finance and the World Bank, to concessional loans for a total of 200 million euros to support the government budget, highly impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. I must say that the 200 million is the French part. Following the strategic partnership which links France and Indonesia since 9 years, France and Indonesia are currently negotiating a global action plan in which health is an important theme. A dialogue is strengthening and will allow structuring cooperation in this era. Indonesia, for example, has recently started implementing universal health coverage, for which France has a long history and savoir-faire. Our solid expertise in that field will be shared with Indonesia, so we can mutualize our efforts facing global health issues. And I must say that we were working together, French and Indonesian foreign ministries, on a multilateral basis on the many groups that exist to fight COVID.
Just going on to the whole question of French presence here in Indonesia, there's a lot of very successful French companies here, but have they been affected by this crisis? Are you aware of difficulties that companies have got into, closing down of trade, I mean, and all of the difficult things that have happened due to this COVID crisis?
We have around 200 French companies in Indonesia. Of course, the big French companies are here, but also very small scale companies. Those companies employ around 50,000 Indonesian workers in a wide range of sectors, from energy, water, tourism, and they have been affected, like all the companies, by the COVID-19. Their main focus was first to protect their staff from the disease, and also to ensure the continuity of their activities. Most of them implemented work from home for the administrative and commercial staff, but some production facilities or project sites continue to operate, like Aqua, which is now French owned and managed. The sectors which have been so very affected, it's tourism, and we have a lot of French people working in tourism. The big companies like Accor, which is present everywhere in Indonesia, is going through difficult times, but also individual French businessmen who open a restaurant or a small hotel, of course in Bali, but everywhere around Indonesia. Those are in great difficulties, and the French government is trying to help. We have a massive scheme of state-guaranteed liquidity loans for French companies and their subsidiaries in the world.
If I'm not mistaken, has been the most successful tourist destination in Europe, at least for many years. Are you working with the Indonesian Tourism Ministry to share some of that incredible expertise in tourism management and promotion? Is there a relationship there?
There was and still is some training going on for Indonesian people working in tourism. So we greet some of them in France for special training, and there is also training in Indonesia. Recently, I'm not sure that the two ministers, the Ministry of Tourism are in close contact, but I think it's going through our companies present in Indonesia. You mentioned Accor, which is training a lot of Indonesian workers in the field of hotels and food and beverages, catering and all that. So it's I mean, the administrative official cooperation is existing, especially with scholarships and things like that. But I think it's the private sector who's the most active, and rightly so.
Oh, I think several hundred hotels now. That must affect the training of a lot of people up to very high standards. Two subjects completely off COVID and off, nothing is completely off COVID, of course. The Paris Peace Forum in 2020 just took place. I presume that took place virtually. Were you aware of that?
Well, the Paris Peace Forum is taking place, in fact, in November.
It's moved to November. It was scheduled for earlier.
No, it's always in November because it's also linked with the end of the First World War, the commemoration.
Okay,
it's.
Is there a relationship with Indonesia over that, or is it just is it relevant to the Indonesian
Of course, of course. I was just participating to a Visio conference a few days back with Dino Patijalal and the Secretary General of the forum, the Paris Peace Forum, and Yeni Wahid to explain the Paris Peace Forum to Indonesian NGOs and also to students and civil servants. It's the annual international meeting for all actors of global governance. It's the place where head of states and international organizations meet civil society and the private sector to build new forms of collective action. And the third edition, which will take place between 11 and 13 of November, will be devoted to the multi-actor response to coronavirus, to COVID-19, with the conviction that we can collectively overcome the challenges before us and use this crisis as an opportunity to rebuild a more sustainable world. And this edition will offer a first opportunity to gather the international community, both by being physically present and also virtually. And we hope that a lot of Indonesian NGOs will be able to participate and to submit projects to Indonesian NGOs already submitted projects in the two previous editions. So it's a very active forum, and Indonesia has a role to play there.
It's an extremely important forum as far as that's concerned, because COVID, as you say, has proven the fact that every country is connected to every other country, and if one country, to put it undiplomatically, misbehaves, it can affect so much more than just their own sovereignty, but the whole relationship by air and sea to other countries. So I wish you the best of luck as the host of that, and hope that Indonesia can have a good voice in it. I know you can't predict the future. It's very difficult to predict when anything is going to stop and when this new normal will start. I'm not a big fan of the words new normal, by the way, because I don't think it takes us with enough vision into a new situation. We're just plastic wrapping the old situation. But what are your plans and the embassy's plans and France's plans in Indonesia if we get to a new normal? What do you want to see happen? What are your ambitions? What are your objectives? What would you like to get excited about for the next couple of years?
Well, for France, Indonesia is a priority in the region for many reasons. But first of all, Indonesia, as the fourth most populous nation in the world, the first Muslim country, and a country maritime, we discussed about that, this archipelago is placed at the center of the Indo-Pacific arc. And France has developed an Indo-Pacific strategy because, as you know, France is present with territories in the Pacific and in the Indian Ocean, in the Polynesia and New Caledonia in the Pacific, and La Réunion Island and Mayotte in the Indian Ocean. We are very active in this region economically, strategically, and on the environmental questions. So we developed this strategy, and we have many partners on this strategy, but we feel that Indonesia is a key player. And it's a key player also because Indonesia, together with ASEAN, is an actor, a very important actor in a multilateral world. Indonesia is defending the multilateral approach to problems, which is not that easy nowadays, which are trying to escape multilateralism and trying to go their own way, which we think is not only not the good thing, but it's a dangerous thing. The multilateral approach ASEAN is a very good example of that, is the good one. So we feel that the relation between France and Indonesia, which is already very good.
Thank you very much indeed. This is Alistair Spears. I've been speaking to His Excellency Olivier Chambard, which I've just mispronounced, which I apologize for. But being Scottish, we're not known for our French pronunciation. He's led us through a fantastic relationship that France has with Indonesia over a whole range of mutually important subjects, including a global action plan on health coverage, which we think is extremely good timing. The international governance plans through the Paris Peace Forum, which is coming up in November. Hopefully the world will be a little bit more back to normal. His Excellency returns to Indonesia, having been here during the previous major crisis, 1977 and 98. So he is an expert in dealing with crises. We hope, sir, that you will see this crisis through and come back to enjoying Indonesia as a place to really revel in the culture, the food, and the people. But on behalf of now Jakarta and all of our readers and now viewers, we'd like to thank you for being with us today and to wish you greatest of success in all that you do. Thank you very much indeed, Your Excellency, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.